Hi everyone, I'm Maggie Weldon from maggiescrochet.com, and in this video we're going to show you how to arm knit using Lion Brand's Quickie yarn. And this yarn is a number 6 super bulky weight yarn, so you only need one strand to do the arm knitting with. And this was created with arm knitting in mind, but you can also use it for other projects that require a number 6 super bulky weight yarn. And this color here is called Fruity, and it's got a lot of pinks in it. And then this one over here is called Tangy. So in the video, we are going to show you how to create this larger scarf using 3 skeins of the Quickie yarn. And you'll be casting on 12 stitches. And then this is an example of a smaller one using only 1 skein of this yarn. And this was made casting on only 4 stitches. We're also going to explain how you could use 2 skeins and have a little bit wider scarf and cast on 8 stitches. So this yarn is 74% acrylic and is 22% wool and is 4% others and other fibers. It comes in 7 colors, and all of them have this black strand which helps accentuate the other colors in the other fibers. And the knitting needle size is 50 or 25 millimeter, and the crochet hook is an S35 or 19 millimeter. So the links to everything are listed below, and now we're going to take you to a close-up, and Christina is going to show you step by step how to make these lovely scarves.
Hey everybody, it's Christina from Maggie's Crochet, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make this arm knit scarf out of Lion Brand Quickie yarn. This is a super bulky yarn, you can see here. It comes in a nice variety of colors. This one I'm using today is called Tangy. It's mostly purple, but as you can see, you've got some of the white and the blue running through it as well. So since this is so bulky, we'll only be needing a single strand of this. I'm making a fairly wide scarf today, so I'll be using probably about 3 skeins. You can get 1 scarf out of 1 skein. It's just going to be a skinnier scarf, say only about 4 stitches across instead of the 12 that I'll be doing. So to begin, you'll want to measure off for your long tail cast on. For my scarf, which like I said is going to be about 12 stitches across, you want to measure off about 4 yards. Which I've got here. You can do this either using a yardstick tape measure, or for me, the distance from my fingertip to my nose is about 1 yard, so I just measured that off 4 times, and that's going to be my long tail for my long tail cast on. So I've got the 4-yard mark right here in my hands, and right at this mark I'm going to make a slip knot. What I usually do is take the yarn, wrap it around my hand, and then wrap it behind. So it's behind that loop there, and then if you just pull it up through that loop, slide that onto your wrist, and you've got a nice slip knot there. And you can adjust this a little bit. You don't want to make it so tight on your wrist that you'll never get the loop off. Probably about that much slack is probably about right. You want to be able to still slide it on and off your wrist fairly easily. So go ahead and adjust that, get it secure. Then you're going to want to set yourself up so that your long tail is near your fingertips. And this other end, the one that's still attached to my skein of yarn here, this is called my working end. And that I want to kind of situate towards my elbow. So once I've got my yarn situated, I'm going to lift up my wrist a little bit, make this kind of mountain shape here. Then taking my other hand, I'm going to take my thumb and my index finger and go right in between that little mountain shape. Then when I open up my fingers and lower my wrist, I've created this kind of V shape on my other hand. So again, got my long end towards my fingertips, my working end towards my elbow. Take my thumb and my index finger, my opposite hand, go right in between those 2 strands, open up my hand, push down my wrist, and I've got this V shape on my other hand. Now I'm going to take the hand with the slip knot. I'm going to go underneath this strand closest to me, and then pick up this strand that's coming over my index finger. and that creates a new loop, which I'm just going to slide directly onto my wrist and then tighten up my yarn. You know, don't think of it as tightening so much as just taking out the slack. You don't want there to be any slack there, but you want to make sure that it's still nice and loose on your wrist. So again, lift up your wrist, thumb and your index finger in between those two strands, open up your hand, put down your wrist. If you labeled these strands starting closest to you, 1, 2, 3, and 4, you'd be going underneath 1, picking up 3, and then that becomes your new loop. So index finger and thumb in between those strands, open up, create the V shape underneath into strand number 1, pick up strand number 3, and then take out the slack. So that's 4 stitches. If you wanted to get a whole scarf out of one skein, you'd stop about here and only do a 4-stitch row. Like I said, I'm going to do a pretty big one today. I'm going to do about 12 stitches, so I still have a ways to go. So I'm going to speed up my casting on now. If this is your first arm knit project, I suggest doing the cast on a couple of times. So, you know, cast on your 12 stitches, take it off, unravel it, and do it another time or two, just to kind of help cement the process in your mind. I remember when I was first learning how to knit, I cast on my scarf, I knitted my whole scarf, it was great, you know, I was really good at knitting, but by the time I got to the end, I had forgotten how to cast on. So I had to look it up again to start my next project. So go ahead and practice casting on a couple of times, and you can always come back and watch this video again if you need to. Let's see, how many is that? So each strand is 1 stitch, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So one last stitch. There we go. You'll probably have a little bit of your long end left, shouldn't be nearly as long now. We'll use this later and make sure that it's woven in and it's nice and secure, but for now you can kind of just toss that into the side and forget about it. So you won't need it anymore. To start your actual knitting process, so we've got our hand with all of our stitches on it, we've got our empty hand. I'm going to take my hand with my stitches and pick up the working end of my yarn, so that the working end is coming out the top of my hand and the end that's attached to my project is coming out of the bottom of my hand, as opposed to this where the working end's coming out the bottom and the end that's attached is at the top. See how that's twisted around my hand? It's not what we want. Make sure the working end is coming out the top. It should not be wrapped around the back of your hand. It's just holding it in your hand just like that. So once you've got that, go ahead and get a good grip on that. Take your first stitch and just slide it right off your wrist, still holding on to this yarn the whole time. And what you've done is just created a new loop. So we're going to take that loop and slide it onto the opposite wrist and then take out any slack that there might be. And then we'll just repeat that across. Yarn in your hand, working and coming out the top. Take the first stitch off your arm, slide it right off your hand, take this new loop you just created, slide it on the opposite wrist. And we'll just repeat that all the way across. So this does use up quite a bit of yarn. You will find yourself having to pull out of your skein every couple of stitches or so. But it's literally just holding yarn, making loops, and transferring them from arm to arm. It's exactly the same process as regular knitting, if you're familiar with that. You're just using your arms instead of your knitting needles. Hence the name arm knitting. As you are arm knitting, your right side will always be facing you, because we don't ever actually turn the work. We just kind of transfer it from side to side. Alright, when you get to the last stitch, you will start just the same. Pick up your yarn, working in coming out the top of your hand, slide that last stitch off your wrist, slide the new loop over your opposite wrist. And that's one row of arm knitting. You can see that's probably about 3 or 4 inches in just one row. So you can see how quickly this project is going to work up. For the next row, we're going to do exactly the same thing. It'll just be mirrored a little bit. So I'll pick up my working yarn with the hand with all the loops on it, working in coming out the top of my hand. Just grab a stitch, slide it off, slide the new loop onto the opposite hand. So it just keeps going back and forth over your arms. Now, if at any point you stop, you get distracted, you're watching TV, someone's talking to you, and you forget which side you're working on, just look and see which side your yarn is attached to. Your yarn is attached to your newest stitches. We've got to get rid of the old stitches before we can get rid of the new stitches. So just reach across, pick up the yarn, and continue knitting. So I'm going to go ahead and make up this whole scarf, and then I will come back and show you how to bind off or cast off the very last row, and then if you'd like, how to sew it together to make a cowl. So I'll go off and work on that, and I'll come back and show you how to finish up. So as you can see, I've been working on my arm knit scarf. I'm on my 3rd skein of yarn now, and I've got about 3 or 4 yards left before I'll run out of yarn. So when you get to that point, it's time to go ahead and finish off all these loops so that we'll have our finished scarf. So the first couple stitches are going to be just like you had done all the way up until now. We'll go ahead and do 1 stitch, and then a 2nd stitch. Doesn't matter which arm you end up on at the end either. I usually happen to end up on this arm, but it doesn't really matter. Just whenever you're about to run out of yarn, go ahead and stop and do this step. So I've got 2 stitches on my wrist now. I'm going to take the one nearest my elbow and slide it off my hand. Just like that. This other loop is going to keep it from unraveling, but now I've got only 1 loop on my hand. So now I'll do another stitch, picking up my yarn, working in out the top, slide that loop off, slide the new loop on this wrist, go ahead and pull out the slack a little bit, and then again, take the loop nearest your elbow and just pull it right off over your hand. This is called either binding off or casting off, depending on who you're talking to. And it just gives us a nice edge and will keep everything from unraveling. So you'll just repeat this all the way across until you have only 1 loop left on either hand. I tighten this row maybe a little more than I do the rest of them, since it's the last one. Just straight off, just like that. This scarf did not take me that long to make. I'd say maybe half an hour or so. Now I have had quite a bit of practice, but it shouldn't take you too terribly long either. Alright, so I'm down to my little, oh, no, I still got 2 stitches on this arm. I was about to say I'm down to my last stitch. Alright, now I'm down to the last stitch, so I'm going to work it just like normal. This hand is now free, I don't have anything else attached to it. I'm going to slide the one nearest my elbow off my arm, just the way we've been doing. And then when you only have 1 loop left, just take hold of whatever's left of your yarn and just pull it straight through like that. And that is your finished edge. Now you can certainly leave your scarf just like this if you want, just have a nice big thick scarf. But if you'd like to make a cowl out of it, also known as an infinity scarf. Then you're going to want to take both ends. Let's see here, it's going to take me just a minute to finagle this in front of the camera. Making sure that you don't twist your scarf. Line up both ends. So there's my loose end. We're going to need all that. Here's my cast off end, or my bind off end, what I just finished, and then here is my first row of my scarf. And again, I'm taking a little bit of time to make sure that my scarf isn't twisted. So once you've got these laid out next to each other, let's see, there's my loose end from the beginning. Here is my loose end from the end. This is the longer one, so I'm going to be working with this. But if you want to do a cowl neck, all you've got to do is just take your ends, put them up next to each other like this, and we're just going to take this long end and kind of sew these together. I find this just as easy to do by hand. If you would rather get a large crochet hook or something like that to help you, you certainly can. But I'm just kind of weaving my end here through both sides of my scarf, just to kind of pull them together, and this way I have one big loop. So I'll just continue doing that all the way down to the end, and then fasten it off and tuck in the end so they won't be noticeable. Well guys, I hope that this video has been helpful to you. If you have any questions about your arm knit scarf, you can certainly ask them down in the comments. I'll do my best to help you out. And down in the description, you'll find the link to everything you need for this project. Thanks for watching.